Hi.
Greetings. We're on page 69 of the Proclaimer's book. The subhead now is Objects of Attack. Through the close of 1917 and into 1918, the Bible students energetically distributed the new book, The Finished Mystery. By the end of 1917, the printers were busy on the 850,000 edition. The Watchtower of December 15, 1917 reported, "The sale of the 7th volume is unparalleled by the sale of any other book known in the same length of time, excepting the Bible."
But not everyone was thrilled with the success of The Finished Mystery. The book contained some references to the clergy of Christendom that were very cutting. This so angered the clergy that they urged the government to suppress the publications of the Bible students. As a result of this clergy-inspired opposition, early in 1918, The Finished Mystery was banned in Canada. Opposition soon mounted against the Bible students in the United States.
To expose this clergy-inspired pressure, on March 15, 1918, the Watchtower Society released the tract Kingdom News No. 1. Its message? The 6-column wide headline read, "Religious Intolerance. Pastor Russell's followers persecuted because they tell the people the truth." Below the heading, Treatment of Bible Students, Smacks of the Dark Ages, were set forth the facts of the persecution and the ban that had begun in Canada. The instigators? The tract pulled no punches in pointing to the clergy, who were described as a bigoted class of men who have systematically endeavored to prevent the people from understanding the Bible and to throttle all Bible teaching unless it comes through them. What a hard-hitting message.
How did the clergy respond to such an exposé? They had already stirred up trouble against the Watchtower Society, but now they got vicious. In the spring of 1918, a wave of violent persecution was launched against the Bible students in both North America and Europe. The clergy-inspired opposition came to a head on May 7, 1918, when U.S. federal warrants were issued for the arrest of J.F. Rutherford and several of his close associates. By mid-1918, Rutherford and 7 associates found themselves in the federal penitentiary in Atlanta, Georgia. But with Judge Rutherford and his associates in prison, what happened to the operation of headquarters?
Oh boy, where to start? First of all, I guess the subhead's where to start. Objects of attack, and of course that's them.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone who knows the contents of The Finished Mystery knows that the attack was initiated by Rutherford and his cohorts. The book is, basically, this very mild-tempered reference in paragraph 2 to the book contains some references to the clergy of Christendom that were very cutting.
Slanderous would be more appropriately stated.
600 pages, if you've read the book, and we challenge those who haven't to get a copy and read it. 600 pages of slander, cover to cover. Mm-hmm. Not just slander, but false prophecy. Many false prophecies, including that the clergy would be destroyed and their churches would be destroyed in the year 1918. So we'll put a link to that at the end.
Yeah, and I think even the fact that they talk about in The Finished Mystery, if you read The Finished Mystery, so they're guilty of slander in the book for sure. They're guilty of false prophecy if you read it.
Over and over.
And they're guilty of idolatry because it really pushes Russell. It pushes him as the voice of God, all kinds of statements that you just don't make about people.
And which they retracted about a decade later, yeah.
So you have to ask, if this is such a wonderful book presenting the truth to people, why aren't we republishing it?
Yeah. It's even admitted what the book contained in an indirect way in the 3rd paragraph when it says, what was the message of Kingdom News No. 1 and The Finished Mystery as a whole?
This is a publication of theirs.
This is their new series called Kingdom News. No. 1, its message, religious intolerance, Pastor Russell's followers persecuted. Notice who said Pastor Russell's followers. You did.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what makes the book essentially idolatrous. If you read it today, you realize this is a paean of praise to Pastor Russell.
You know, when the accusations are coming from you, you know, like I say, they could have gone and found out what the newspapers were saying about all this, but they don't do that. They just tell you. They give their slant.
And then there's the next part of that sentence. Pastor Russell's followers persecuted because they tell the people the truth. And anyone who's read The Finished Mystery knows what a joke that is.
Yeah. So if you read The Finished Mystery, you would be upset. Even today, you'd be upset. Certainly then, during a crisis, you're going to be upset.
Why would you be upset today? Because it would turn your stomach, if you're a loyal Jehovah's Witness, to realize what you're bragging about today.
Yeah, you don't... Is it truth, what was in that book? You wouldn't consider it truth now if you were reading it.
But you would notice the slander, and you would notice the false prophecies that were in later editions
and the
deleted.
Idolatry.
You would notice it's all about Russell, yeah. And I think in the first paragraph, too, we should make a note of the fact they're boasting about the unparalleled sale of the book, saying it was not duplicated by any other book in such a short period of time, except the Bible. But what's the problem of equating that with success, as they do in the next sentence?
The success is based on numbers, not content.
Then on the next page, you have, who are the instigators of this persecution? Which you say was because we were telling people the truth. Who were the instigators? And of course the clergy get broadsided in this direct quote, a bigoted class of men who have systematically endeavored to prevent the people from understanding the Bible. If you've read any of the books published by the clergy during that period, you'll notice how less laughable they are, at the very least less laughable than The Finished Mystery.
Yeah, their books can be reprinted. You can profit from them today. Can you profit from The Finished Mystery? Maybe to get out of the Watchtower, but that's about the only profit
it is
you're
good
going to
for
get
that.
from it.
Yeah, it is good for that purpose of getting you out real fast. I just wanted to show you a sample of what the clergy of Christendom were publishing during this very period, during the building of the Watchtower from about 1880 to 1920. These kind of books were being published by the clergy. Some of them even have references to the Watchtower, by the way, not very flattering, but certainly not slanderous, and certainly not filling their between their covers with false prophecy. Milton Terry, for instance, during that period, Biblical Apocalyptics. These are just books on the kingdom. New edition, you'll notice. This one, which has been reprinted, but I have an original, The Millennium and Israel's Future by B.W. Newton. The Parousia by J. Stuart Russell. The Kingdom of God by A.B. Bruce, not F.F. Bruce, A.B. Bruce, who was a great Bible, New Testament commentator of that day. And these, which I think are the highest, for me anyway, the ones that are most valuable, which we would definitely recommend everybody have. William Biederwolf, The Millennium Bible. Nathaniel West, The 1,000-Year Reign of Christ. And most staggering of all, The Theocratic Kingdom of the Lord Jesus Christ by George Peters. Now, Peters, 2,000 pages of small print here, so more like 4,000 pages.
You should
books
put
today.
these in the description.
Peters and the others wrote these books during that same 40-year period, from the Russell being a young man to Rutherford taking over the organization.
Yeah.
Like you said, you can tell by just looking at them, they're still in print after over 100 years. But they're also written by different denominations. The clergy that wrote these books are of different denominations: Presbyterian, Methodist, Congregational, Anglican, Brethren.
I think this thought that they have that they're being attacked. See, when they don't always necessarily agree with one another on every single thing, but when they present their position on something, they may comment on somebody else's position. They want you to weigh things, to decide. That they're willing to listen to one another. and see what someone else has gone at. They don't just slam everyone else. Here they've got this comment, they prevent the people from understanding the Bible and to throttle all Bible teaching unless it comes through them. Well, they're different denominations, and they don't throttle another denomination. They don't say, well, don't listen to him, I've got the truth. That's what the Watchtower does.
This is what Ray Franz and his researcher friend found out when they went looking at the seminary libraries of Christendom, that you have all of these books on one shelf.
Mm-hmm.
This is just a sampling, by the way. I've got 7 different volumes here. I could have gone to 70 quite easily, books on the kingdom during that very period. But they're all collected and reprinted endlessly, most of them.
And you can find them in Christian bookstores. They don't say, well, no, you have to use this one.
Only my denomination. Yeah. So you go to a seminary library of a Methodist seminary, or a Presbyterian seminary, or an Anglican seminary, and you'll find all of these books, if the seminary is a fairly large one. Mm-hmm. So they're not censoring those points of view that don't come from them.
Yeah.
Unlike you. Of course, what a joke this is when you say to throttle all Bible teaching unless it comes through them. Who was doing that at that very moment?
They are.
The finished mystery is basically saying unless you come to C.T. Russell, you can't be saved.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, again, it's so maddening, and I got to admit, I have a hard time containing myself when I read these kind of sentences now. What a hard-hitting message. You're right, but it hit you the hardest. You're the people who can't reprint that book.
Yeah.
Your so-called apostates are the only way you'll find out what's in that book.
If somebody verbally abuses another person, you might say, what a hard-hitting message. But if it's full of all kinds of errors and misrepresentations, it's not a hard-hitting message then. It's just an abuse. It's just somebody abusing someone else, and they've got strong lungs or vicious tongue.
That's what I have to say it again. It's just a joke, but it is a very bitter pill for us to swallow, realizing that this joke is potentially fatal to Jehovah's Witnesses.
That witnesses will be reading this and accepting it as telling them the truth and representing those representations that are really misrepresentations of others are just accepted by witnesses.
So I guess the bottom line is get these books, but also get, if you can, a copy of The Finished Mystery. We've got some links here, though, that should help you, because it won't be easy to find a cheap copy of The Finished Mystery, despite
it's very hard to find The Finished Mystery at all.
A million copies. You would think there'd be thousands around?
Yeah.
So the links are, first, what did they say about the clergy of Christendom just before 1918 in The Finished Mystery? They said that the clergy and the churches would be destroyed wholesale in 1918. So we're putting a link into that video where we discuss those pages.
Yeah.
And also how I landed softly when I left the Watchtower, unlike Vivian and many witnesses. I landed softly because I was aware of the existence of these books by clergy during the same period that I had to examine, right?
And then we're going to link the playlist that slander. It's about slander, and a lot of quotes from different publications, including The Finished Mystery, that I would count as slanderous about other people's.
But of course, the focus is on Rutherford as usual, because he's the
he's the
agent.
one with the really hard tongue.
Yeah. See you soon.
Mm-hmm.